So the first thing you notice when you log into VOM is you'll see a number of a dashboard with a number of potentially faults and risks on it. And what this will show you is kind of current things that aren't configured optimally or correctly. You could see things like path issues with DMP, volumes that are stopped, different state issues. And the important thing from here is this is actually a launching off point to drill down into a particular configuration and perform remediation tasks. So some of the operations that I'll show you today, just to show you how to get at, will allow you to remediate different error or problem conditions to get your systems back up and running effectively. So one thing I want to note, if you go to Settings, Deployment Management, this is the screen that we configure all the add-ons in VOM through. Two add-ons in here that I want to mention. One is the Storage Foundation Administration for Unix add-on. And this is something that's bundled, it's separate from the main VOM management server installation. Like other add-ons, you can download them and install them just as a separate step. And what this includes is a number of operations for managing volume configurations, file system configurations, disk groups, all the basic storage and extended storage foundation operations, as well as volume replicator operations. And I'll show you how to get into these in a little bit. Additionally, above that is an add-on called SF Administration. This is pre-bundled. This is included as part of the VOM Management Server 4.0 installation. And these are newer operations. We were actually refreshing some of the legacy storage foundation management operations, improving the user experience. And so there's a number of operations in here that include things like creating disk groups, adding disk to disk groups, resizing volumes, configuring snapshots that you can access through this, and I'll show you how to access those operations as well. And as we go forward, we're going to actually be moving more of the operations from the Storage Foundation Administration for Unix, refreshing them and including them in the pre-bundled SF Administration add-on. So to get at the various administrative tasks, a brief note on access rights. To perform Storage Foundation operations, you do need to be an admin within the VOM configuration on the host or hosts that you're performing those operations on. So if you only have guest or operator level access, you'll not be able to perform these operations. So if I go to Manage, Hosts, this is typically where you're going to get at the different host configurations to actually see the Storage Foundation configuration. Now, if I want to go to a particular host, like other views in VOM, I'm able to actually search for a particular host name, and it will quickly filter the view to show me that host. I can then navigate down to get into a view that will show me information about the different disks that are connected to that host, information about the disk group, the size information, the LUN details, what enclosure or array that's part of, information about the thin configuration, so I can see how much storage this disk is actually using on the array side. So a thin provision disk, I can see this is actually only using a smaller number of actual storage on the array side. So a lot of information about the disks, information about the disk groups. So as it relates to Storage Foundation, I can see disk group information here. If they're shared or cluster disk groups, I would see that is here as well as some information about the size and what's allocated within there. Additionally, the volumes that are configured, so I can see the different volumes that are built on top of that disk group, associated file system information, file system type, size information, as well as the number of mirrors. If there were any snapshots here, I would see the link to the snapshots themselves. Clicking down into the volume, I would see the dependencies as well. So clicking on a volume, I would see the disks that volume actually sits on. File system is basically the same view as the volume view in terms of information, just a slightly different perspective. There's also a little bit of other information here from about DMP. So the HBA configuration, the array ports that the storage is connected from and to, the LUNs, so basically the array side perspective of the storage is being used on the host, as well as some additional host attributes around the enclosure details and DMP attributes, as well as volume manager default settings and attributes. So this is the level of detail as far as information that you can see about Storage Foundation within these main central, as we call them, central views within VOM. Now to access certain operations, there's a few different places that you can get at the details. First, I'll show you the operations that are available as part of the Storage Foundation Administration add-on that's pre-bundled with Volume 4.0. So if I go back to that disk group tab, I'm able to select a disk group, and I can see that there's an operation called Add Disk to Disk Group. So if there were available disks, I wanted to add them to this configuration, I'd be able to do that from here. Additionally, from the Disks tab, I can also do similar kinds of operations. I can add disk to disk group or create new disk groups. I can also do recovery operations or replace missing disks from here as well. Additionally, from the volume view, I'm able to select a volume and perform some snapshot operations, actually configuring snapshots and updating them, as well as scheduling snapshot operations. I can also mirror, add new mirrors or remove mirrors, and also delete volumes, resize volumes, and restore from a snapshot. This gives you an idea of some of the features that are available as part of that SF administration add-on. Now, additionally, there is this administer button, which is kind of hiding up here at the top. And you see this green arrow, which means basically that there's a daemon that's running on the back end that supports this. So if I click on administer, it'll take me to a view similar information to what I just saw. It's kind of a summary view for that host. But if I drill down a little bit further, I'll see some additional features. So for example, if I get into the volumes view, again, I'm going to see the same information as far as the Storage Foundation volumes. And if I look here, I can also see there's a lot more in terms of the actual functions. So in addition to some of the features that we saw on the previous screen around resize and snapshot operations, there's other things in here around starting and stopping and splitting, moving volumes, as well as some file system operations. You'll see this is consistent. If I go back to that previous screen and go to, say, disk groups, you'll also see a similar view as far as a table of information, and then some additional operations in addition to what we saw in the previous view around adding disks. So I can see things around disk group split and join, as well as some information about recovering and upgrading disk groups as well. So it's the same for the other Storage Foundation operations seen here. As far as Volume Replicator is concerned, I want to show you two different views of the Volume Replicator information. The first is within this Administer view, I'm able to actually see at the bottom here Veritas Volume Replicator, and I'm able to see the RDS replication status. So here I can see the replicated data sets, the name of those, if there's the primary and secondary that's configured, the current status, if it's behind by anything, you can see that information here. I can drill down to see some additional information, summary information about the data volumes, and some more detail about the status, the primary, bunker configuration, secondary, as well as any active alert conditions that may be present in that. So that's also what I didn't point out. If I go in here, it's also available several operations. So I can start and stop, pause, resume, replication from these views as well. So managing VVR, you can do that from this perspective under Administer for a particular host. Additionally, under Manage Replications, I'm able to see kind of a high-level dashboard, if you will, of all of the different replications that are configured in the environment. So I can see that one I was just looking at, the SFRVG, kind of a high-level view of that, similar status information. But I can also see other replication configurations, and I can drill down into these and see similar information to what I saw before in terms of the data volumes, the primary and secondary information. However, there's no operations that are actually accessible from these particular views. Additionally, just around views in general, if you look at the beyond just the host views and replication views, if you go to the inventory view, you see some more counts about the different types of hosts and storage to support the Storage Foundation environment. Also, if you click on reports, you'll see a number of reports that have details about the storage configuration, file system utilization, enclosure storage allocation by host, as well as information about thin storage and how it's being utilized in the Storage Foundation configuration. Also at the bottom, you'll get information about the different types of objects, all the disks across hosts, volumes across hosts, disk groups across hosts, all these different types of configured objects shown from this view. Congratulations! Thank you for completing this semantic online course. Your feedback on the course will better help us meet your training needs. The evaluation link can be found to the left above the transcript for each presentation. Thank you.